back, everyone, to another episode of the Board Life podcast. After a 2 week long hiatus, we are back. I know it's been
Yep,
a while.
it is a while. Hey, I know we talked quite a bit, but I miss talking to you, man, on this podcast.
I know, man. We have much to discuss today. We're missing one of our
Yeah,
again
Omar.
one of our co-hosts, Omar, who is still traveling.
Yeah.
Man is always on a mission. So he'll be back for the next episode. But right now I think he's landed in New York. I don't know. Last time I texted him, he was in Paris like a day or two ago. He
Yeah,
texted us,
for
didn't
for a
he?
layover, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for a layover. I think he goes through Paris when he comes back from Algeria.
Okay.
But
Okay.
he should be back. He should be back in the next episode. But today it's you and I holding down the fort.
Yep. Yep. And yeah, we got a great story lined up. And but first off, how are you, Zane?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
Things have been going well. I've been traveling a lot recently for work. So
You
this
went
has
to
been kind of
you
interesting.
went to Dallas, right?
I did. I went to Dallas. And I'm not gonna lie, bro. Like everyone, like in one of our previous episodes, we talked about like, oh, everyone's moving to Dallas. Dallas is like the place to be.
Hmm.
Um,
You
or
think it
maybe
is?
maybe it's just Texas in general. But like
Yeah.
I went to Dallas, bro. It was kind of underwhelming. It just felt like dude, it felt like suburbia all over. Like it was like there was a little city in the middle that was kind of empty, like the downtown, and then it's
Yeah.
just suburb after suburb after suburb. It's like a bunch of Napervilles. Like I'm from Naperville, so like
Naperville,
it's literally just
Illinois.
like Naperville times 10. Like that's literally what Dallas is to me. So I was not as, but I will say I visited, and it actually kind of ties into today's episode. I visited Southern Methodist campus,
Okay.
Southern Methodist University in Dallas. It's like near Highland Park or something, super bougie area.
Yeah.
Dude, one of the most beautiful campuses I've ever seen.
Really.
Yeah, it was amazing. I
I've
heard it's really
I've
expensive though.
oh,
My Uber driver was like, yeah, I went there and I paid 60 grand a year. And I was like, that sucks.
my
That
God.
really sucks. He was not
I
happy about it.
I never heard of that school until like recently. Like one of my IU friends, she goes there.
Yeah.
She's going there for a law degree,
Oh, she's going there
um,
for law school?
for law school, and then this
Oh.
story that we have coming up.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't like because I don't know, like, dude, it's a big school too. Like I didn't even realize that. I don't know. Maybe I can look it up how many people go there. But anyways,
mhm.
it's campus. Like, that part of Dallas, I love it.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, well, Texas has always been kind of like my bucket list. I've always wanted to go there, and like I've heard about it, and
Yeah.
I've heard it from my boss. My one of my boss is actually living in Texas right now, and
Oh,
she's
really?
working remotely. So and she
Really?
really loves it though. So I really want to go down there sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You should,
that's
man. You should. I mean, out of all of them, I've heard Austin is the best.
so I've
But
heard. I've heard. Yeah.
but
Well, who
that's
knows?
just they say that for like, oh, it's the in crowd and stuff. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like the young
Gotcha.
tech bros.
Gotcha. That's
But
true.
yeah.
But anyway, so let's get back to what we are really here for. We discussed this, Zane, right? Like, let's be honest, like between you and I and many other people out there in the world, we all use dating apps, right? Right.
I've never used a dating app, bro. Like I
You
will say
never
yes.
use dating apps? No
I've never even
way.
once downloaded a dating app before, like Tinder or Bumble or Hinge or any of these. Like, although
Okay.
I'm pretty sure almost every single one of my friends has at some point in time.
Okay. Yeah, I think I am one of those friends.
Oh,
And you are
100% you
probably
are.
the rare, you're probably the rarest guy who does not have a
I
dating app.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, maybe I am. I don't know. I just never like, dude, I don't know. I just never wanted to.
Okay.
It was just too much
So
work. I had to find a picture of myself. I can't do this. Whatever.
you look
It's tough.
great, man. You look great.
Oh,
I feel
thanks,
like
man. Thanks.
you're a catch. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, bro. Hey, man. Yeah, we all need that one day. We all need that reaffirmation of our good looks.
So today we're gonna cover Bumble, and for those people who don't, like Zane, don't really know dating apps.
Yeah.
Bumble is just like Tinder, Hinge, or other dating apps. It's a location-based dating app, but the one key
Mhm.
difference that Bumble has from the rest of the competitors is that women has to make the first move, and they have to do it in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Um, I just want to get all these data stuff out of the way. I just want to let you know like the scale of what Bumble is right now. And then I think the crux of this is really the story of how it came to be. So, Bumble as of right now, it's a $8 billion
Mhm.
company with
Mhm.
42 million active users. It is the fastest growing dating app right now. It's probably the number one trending dating app on the App Store. And
Mhm.
personally for me, when I wanted to cover this story on Bumble and its rise, I think for me, when I was using Bumble, I was always curious like why women had to make the first move. So I kind of dug deeper into into Bumble and the mission, its values. So I went on their website and I really like what Bumble is sending, the message, right? Especially in a world where we are interconnected, the powers or like the walls of old are crumbling down. And I think most importantly, the idea of empowerment, equality, and the shifting of old-fashioned power dynamics is very, very inspirational. And that's kind of what I want to be, or we want to cover today,
Mhm.
for our listeners out there. Um, so I think so. This is where I defer to you, Zane. Could you like give us a rundown? How did it all begin for Bumble, or where does it start?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I always like to think of like Bumble. Whenever I think of Bumble, right, I think of just like the Lyft to the Uber, right? Like kind of Tinder is your Uber, where it's like
Yeah.
your kind of industry standard, but then Bumble has kind of come out of left field and really taken a lot of market share. And it's kind of a badass story of like how it started
I agree.
and how and I will like the founder Whitney Wolfe Herd, which I'll be kind of going into
Mhm.
right now, is she doesn't like this like the the reputation she has of like this was company that was started out of vengeance, out of
Mm,
like what I'm saying, like a comeback story to get revenge on her
like
really bad ex co-founders.
yeah,
She said it's more of she wants it to be as it's more of an empowering movement, right? Like
right,
it's a company focused on women, made by women, to make them and have them have a safe space
right.
in a very unsafe dating environment right now that
Absolutely,
exists in
yeah.
the world. So like, but I will say like if you do. I personally kind of like the vengeance storyline. Like that to me, it like makes for a really good story. Like that's sick.
Yeah,
That
it,
like,
it, it makes
and
us
you'll see when
so
I get into it.
badass. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I can just kind of get right into it
Hmm.
with Whitney Wolfe Herd herself. So Whitney Wolfe Herd is the founder and the CEO of Bumble. So she grew up pretty. She grew up, and I'm only going to say this just because I like to keep track of like the background of a lot of these founders. Like we
Yeah,
talked
she
about
grew up
Shaq and
wealthy. Yep.
others, right? Yeah. So she grew up very wealthy. Her dad was like a very wealthy property developer.
Hmm.
So she went to and why we talked about Southern Methodist earlier. She went to Southern Methodist
Hmm.
University
Yep.
for her undergrad. She majored in international studies there, and while she was there, she was in a sorority, and she talks about as to like how that really shaped her college experience.
Yep.
And she mentions that like that really fueled a lot of the ideas she had when she was even when she was an exec at Tinder and then later on
Hmm.
as CEO of Bumble. And during that, actually, she started a few small online businesses. She started this really small bag business she would sell online and some fashion lines. I don't think any of them really took off. But you know how like in college we're all experimenting with different things, right? So she
Wow,
was she
but
was
I
a
mean,
tinkerer,
for someone in college to be really active in
right?
starting things up, that's really impressive.
Yeah. So like she was an entrepreneur from early on. Like she had that inside of her,
Hmm.
which I think is pretty cool. Um, After college, she joined a startup. And the way she joined the startup is kind of interesting. It was called Cardify. It no longer exists. But
Okay.
this was a startup founded by one of her friends' brothers.
Hmm.
So her friend, and I forgot her friend's name actually, but her friend's brother, his name is Justin Mateen. And she was a sorority sister, I believe, with her at SMU. And so her brother started this company called Cardify. Him and some of his co-founders, they built an app that really connected card users to the most lucrative cards that had the best rewards at that point in time.
Right.
And the big thing about this was they used the swiping feature that you see on
Oh.
Tinder a lot right now, right? Like you see it on Snapchat,
Oh.
Tinder, all these.
Okay.
They use that swiping feature to connect people. So in startups, a lot of times you talk about how startups pivot. This is a
Mhm.
classic example of that, right? They started off with one focus, but found a
Right.
feature that they could apply to something else.
Right.
During
Okay.
the early days of Cardify, this is when Wolf Herd already onboarded as one of the first sales reps. So she was working as a sales rep. The
Wow.
founders of Cardify were participating in hackathons. It's like a big thing, right? Like especially
Mhm.
out on the West Coast, where they were just trying to get some money by competing in this hackathon founded by an incubator.
Mhm.
And so they kind of pivoted the idea and made it a, a swiping feature to connect people, and they called it Matchbox.
Okay.
And this Matchbox idea like immediately took off with investors. They loved it. And so the guys were just like, all right, screw it. We're done with Cardify. The whole team from Cardify just kind of switched over to Matchbox. And that's when Whitney Wolfe Herd became a really, really early employee. She was one of the first 10 employees at Tinder. And
Wow.
so at that time it was called Matchbox, and she worked in the
Mhm.
marketing department under Justin Mateen. So she moved over to the marketing department, and she was, working on projects, to help the company grow.
Yeah.
And one of the most vital projects she worked on was the rebrand. And
Oh.
this is where she becomes kind of like a vital part of the story, right?
Yep.
She was actually responsible for leading the transition in the name from Matchbox to
To
Tinder.
Tinder. Wow.
And
Okay.
she was behind the logo, that little flame
The flame
logo.
logo?
Yeah, the little
Oh.
flame logo, right? Like that was
Okay.
her. So she was really vital and instrumental in like really rebranding the company and fueling its growth. The other kind of main thing they credit her with
Mhm.
is the marketing campaigns. So she kind of pioneered the whole. And I mean, people have done this before, but for dating apps, it wasn't as common. She
Okay.
pioneered the whole college campus kind of raid. So she
Okay.
would fly out to college campuses. She would bring a lot of merch with her, a lot of like, uh, you know, Tinder branded merch. She would
Yeah.
she would set up ambassadors at different college campuses. She
Wow.
would really get in touch with Greek life and
Okay.
tell like all her sorority sisters like Tinder is the place to be. This is where you find, your next date,
Absolutely.
you have a date party coming up. This is where you find your person.
And I think you're right. She carried that strategy to Bumble as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
She did. That's how she got Bumble off the ground. Sorry, it's like I'm like for fast forwarding this, but yeah, she did that. She did that at a couple of universities as a testing ground, at
Yes.
Auburn University, UT
Mhm.
Austin, and yeah, it took off. So yeah, back to the story. So yeah,
Yeah.
she had that
Well,
marketing
because it makes
strategy.
sense, right? Because
Yeah,
like once you have it, like because you need to find really the it crowd right now that's college kids.
right.
And so when
Yeah,
college kids really sign on to this, it becomes like it's like network effects. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone starts to get on it and it
yeah.
grows really wildly.
Wow.
So she really pioneered this. And it's funny because like now you see these ambassadors everywhere for like Bumble, Tinder, Hinge ambassadors. Like even one of our close friends in college was a Tinder ambassador. Do you remember that?
Yes, yes,
So
I remember.
I was like, this is just crazy that like she was the one who really started this campaign, and she was the one on the ground herself traveling to these different places. And
Wow.
like she would give out branded beer, branded, lingerie, branded stuff like this to help kind of create the
So
essence of the
so
brand.
this is what sticks out. Like, for someone who's wealthy, right? And
Yeah.
she could have just like, had a fun time throughout her life, like just going to parties, not doing anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
She has the money, but I'm just so amazed that she's so active and like really going about and getting what she wants,
Well,
you
yeah,
know?
and I mean, like, I think the story is really like it highlights the fact that like she was really like thrown into this amazing opportunity,
Yeah.
but it was still on her to make the most of it,
Right.
right? Because
Of
like
course.
a lot of us are thrown into good opportunities and then either squander it or we just don't do enough. Like
Hmm.
she was fortunate enough to join a company that had a really good promise early on,
Yeah.
and she took it in stride, and she
Yeah.
really made her name for herself early on, which I think is really good.
Yeah.
And so that really helped her, right? Because she
Hmm.
ended up becoming a marketing executive at Tinder in
Right.
2013, and just a couple of years after it launched. But things started to go sour kind of quickly over at
Oof.
Tinder. Yeah, as things do. As things grow, right? Things
Yeah.
get messy. So she was romantically involved with Justin Mateen. So they
Okay.
had started dating. Things took a turn for the worse in the relationship, and as you would imagine, it kind of boiled over into work,
Right.
where she kind of felt this. She kind of felt this culture that like was pitted against her. Like they took his side. You know what I'm saying? And some nasty stuff really started going around. He started kind of targeting her in company meetings, leaving her out of important decisions.
Yeah.
Even throwing around some really bad words that she says she's heard about her, things like gold digger and whore. So like it just started to become a really hostile environment, right? And she filed a sexual harassment case
Man, that's toxic.
against him. Yeah, it just became toxic. Yeah, and I guess that happens, right? Like if
Mhm.
you do get in a relationship with someone you work with and things don't go the way you guys want them to,
Yeah.
the
A-
consequences are
And
something like
then
this. I
and
feel
then
like,
for it to kind of like from your personal life going into work life,
yeah,
man, that's
it's tough to have that affect, your credibility at work.
yeah.
So it just became tense. She ended up quitting Tinder.
Mhm.
Who knows, even if she didn't quit, how long she would have lasted there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With that kind of work environment, she filed a lawsuit actually
Okay. Yeah.
for I think a little bit over $1 million, both in cash and like company stock. So she does have a little bit of Tinder stock.
Yeah.
And so she was like, "This, I'm done," and she left Tinder. Okay, left Justin Mateen, left the whole gang behind, and
Good for her. Good for her.
afterwards, yeah. And what what happened next? So she's done with Tinder, right? Who approaches her later that year?
Um, Founder of Badu, another dating app, another online
Yes,
dating app. It's a Russian guy, right? I don't know how to
yes.
say his
It's a
name.
Russian tech entrepreneur, Andrei Andreev,
Yeah.
and he founded Badu, which is like super popular in like
Mhm.
in Europe and even like the Central Asian states.
Yeah.
They use it a lot. And so he comes to her and he's like, "Look, I know what you can do," because he's seen what she's done at Tinder, and he's like, "Let's build a dating app."
Yeah.
And I guess the lesson there is just like once you do something and you build up a name for yourself, like opportunities will come. You know what I'm saying? Like she had done enough, I guess, in her kind of professional life at that point where doors would open up for her regardless of where she
I
is.
mean, if you think about it, she really, while she was at Tinder, she really revolutionized online dating.
Yeah.
And for Tinder to lose an important person, and for
Yeah.
Andrea to pick her up, wow, that's like the steal of the draft, that
I
kind of thing.
know. I know. And honestly, like this turned into such a good venture for both of them. Like Andre
Yeah.
is kind of a genius for going out to her and being like, I believe in you. Like you can start something here.
Yeah.
Um, because she's already had a pretty successful stint in the dating world.
Yeah.
So he and her end up founding and actually the original name for the app was called Moxie. She wanted
No
it to be called
way.
Moxie. Yeah.
Okay.
But Moxie
Okay.
was already taken apparently by another dating app that
Yeah.
I guess never really took off. So then she changed the name to Bumble,
Nice.
and thus Bumble was started. And Bumble was different for a lot of reasons,
Mhm.
right? And you mentioned a lot of them, just because like you know what I'm saying. It was centered around women. It was a safe space for everyone,
Yeah.
and Bumble had a lot of control over what goes on in the app. Like they really took close metrics of how
Yeah.
long conversations lasted, tried to improve the product and the branding of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it immediately took off, right?
Right.
Like um on Andrev and Herd, they as of November 2017, they had over 22 million registered users, which
Wow.
was pretty crazy at that point in time,
Yeah. I mean, for like a startup, pre
right?
IPO, that's an amazing benchmark to have.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like 2 years after launching, Match Group, which is like the de facto dating company, they
Yeah.
own Tinder too. They bought Tinder,
Yep.
offered a $500 million buyout
Wow.
um, to
Close to
Bumble, and
500. Yeah.
she refused. The board refused. They ended up going public a few years later. Now they are
Mhm.
expanding into different services. So there's Bumble
Amazing.
BFF, there's Bumble for professional networking,
Yeah.
um, and it's just crazy because it's almost like a LinkedIn meets Tinder, right? Where it's like you
Yeah.
can swipe on people that you think would be a good connection. Which honestly, like I don't know, maybe I'll try that, but I don't know. Have you ever tried any of those? Or like BFF, where you're trying to find friends, like you move to a new city and you're like,
Honestly, no, but I have seen those features on the app, and I think it's really amazing. And I think one of so I don't have Tinder right now, but I only have
okay,
Bumble, and one of the amazing things about Bumble right now is that they even like once in a while they actually
Yeah.
like host parties,
Oh,
and
they
like
do.
and they create like a space for people to show up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like I'm not sure about other cities, but like in New York they do that, and people get to come and like meet, not just for dating, but it could even be professional networking as well.
That's what I'm
But
saying. Just finding people to connect with.
yeah, so like, I feel like, it's so smart because like expanding your services or products beyond just like dating, right?
Yeah.
It's such a smart
Yeah.
move. And like, I feel like the way she has done it, like she branded it in such a way that it's more of like a space, not so much on like just two people, whether you like this person or not.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's the thing though. I don't know, because like I feel like moving too much away from the core of what a dating app is hurts you
Yeah.
at the end of the day, because like honestly speaking, I really don't think there's a
Mhm.
huge market. Like if I'm moving to a new city, I'm not gonna hop on Bumble BFFs to try to find a best friend. Like, let's be
Right.
real here. I'm not like,
Of
that's
course.
just kind of
Of
weird. You know
course.
what I'm saying? Like,
Of
or
course.
like or like go on professional networking and like swipe through people and be like, oh, maybe I'll connect. Like, well, what am I gonna talk about with this person, bro? Like,
Yeah.
unless I have a very kind of unique goal in mind that I'm like, okay, I need people. I'm recruiting co-founders, or
Yeah.
I need to
But
hire
it's
people or something
a
like
it's
that.
a it's an interesting space, like, this
It
is the kind
is.
of thing like professional networking. The first thing we think about is LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
But it could be an interesting space. Maybe it's a market that they are tapping into, and it could work out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think what's even more impressive about Bumble really is how groundbreaking, how progressive they are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think Whitney Wolfe Herd, she actually I wouldn't say she lobbied the state of Texas
Mm-hmm.
to pass a bill to make sending unwanted lewd photos
Mm-hmm.
illegal. She lobbied for that, and
Okay.
her and her team, they
Mm-hmm.
created a technology like you said earlier, right? Like they were able to control what goes in the app, what goes into
Mm-hmm.
Bumble. So they created a technology that helps them to remove those kind of photos before users see them. So,
Okay.
and like and it and also like if you as a user you encounter like a misogynistic person who sends like really crude, rude, sexist
Mm-hmm.
messages,
Mm-hmm.
like you actually get publicly shamed. Like
Yeah.
Bumble has this blog where they talk about many things, but they would shame this. It takes me
Really.
back to like Game of Thrones when who was like shame, shame.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Cersei, right? She was
Yeah.
walking down and they were like shame. Um, and it really highlights the whole message, right? Like it's really about safety over freedom.
Yeah.
Like you said before, you want to create a safe space for the
Yeah.
individuals coming into your app. And I think that's really important in this time of age.
But like, how do you instill that? Like, why does Tinder not do that? Like how do they do that better than like Tinder, for example? Is it just because like it's female like started and they have like,
Yeah.
because a female makes like a woman makes the first move?
I think one, that's true because I am not a woman, and I can't say this in all authority, but
Yeah.
just my take is that I think it empowers women and it gives them that choice. Like,
Yeah.
do I want to, instead of them giving the number, it's more of like you give me your number and I decide whether I want to talk to you, that kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
situation. It gives them a
Yeah.
lot of power. And in
Okay.
some regards, I think it's also safe for them.
Yeah.
They get to decide,
Yeah.
whether this person, like, is he a little sus? Is he a little shady?
Yeah.
They get to decide that themselves.
Yeah.
Um,
It's true.
and I think this entire story, even her time at Tinder, and how she came to be, her Whitney Wolfe Herd, I think it kind of highlights the misogyny of the tech world a little bit.
Yeah, dude.
Even though
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't want to show herself, she doesn't, she's more about just empowering women, but it also highlights the fact that women in the technology world,
Yeah.
it's just there's just so few of them, and she's like leading this crusade for
Yeah.
women in tech, even
Well,
though she
so
is. Go ahead.
I will say, and people do like, so this was mentioned. I was gonna bring it up, but I guess it is kind of an interesting fact.
Go for it.
Some people say that, like, because like initially people were like, okay, she is this woman who was able to just rise above everything and build, $15 billion business. Um, the weird thing is that when they were incubating,
Yeah,
and like going up and getting investors and things like that,
yeah,
it wasn't her that was actually going out and meeting with all the investors.
right.
It was the Russian co-founder Andre, who was
Mm,
really leading the charge. So he was kind of internally to the people who were investing in the company. He was kind of the face of the
the
company.
face of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that, I think, I don't know if it helped them, but like, a lot of people brought it up as a way of like, that got around a lot of obstacles that she would have faced as
Mm,
someone who would have had to go out and get, funding
yeah.
from a lot of these investment companies.
But see,
Because
that's
he
yeah.
he was the one who eventually sold Magic Lab. So in 2019, they got big enough where they sold Magic Lab,
Yeah.
to Blackstone,
Oh,
private
right.
equity
Yeah.
firm. So
Mhm.
they sold it at that point in time. They were $3 billion valuation. So they were worth $3 billion as a company.
Yeah.
And he relinquished his entire stake. She kept a 19% stake, Whitney Wolfe Herd,
Yeah.
and she remained CEO. So they kept her installed. And 2 years later, as you know, last year they went public
Yeah.
at a $13 billion valuation. So she became an instant billionaire when that happened,
Yeah. Of
and
course. Of course.
Blackstone got a nice payday. But I just thought it was interesting that, like, when they were first going out and getting funding,
Andrea, who was like
it
going
was
out and
Andre
doing.
who was going out and getting the money. Yeah.
But wasn't there a
Yeah.
story about him not like the reason why he had to sell his stake was because of like there was some like sexual something sexual in nature that kind of forced I don't know, I've heard there was
Oh,
something
really?
yeah, yeah, there was
Oh
something
my
like
God.
yeah, something happened and it kind of forced him and I think yeah, he had to sell his stake because it was pretty bad. Like I think there was like claims of like maybe sexual assault or sexist parties. I don't know. It would
Okay.
and then he was forced to sell. But
Mm,
yeah, I mean going back, I think, I think Whitney Wolfe Herd, you know, she's now like maybe she doesn't want it to be, but she's kind of like the face of women in technology right now. I mean, there are others, right? Like,
correct.
what's her name in Facebook?
Sheryl Sandberg.
Yeah, she's also one of those, with
Yeah.
powerful, influential ladies,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think Whitney Wolfe Herd, she's really
Yeah, she's
special
established herself. Yeah.
because, like, she went through toxic, like her experience. She had toxic relationships. She worked in a toxic environment at
Yeah.
Tinder,
Yeah.
and for her to rise above that, take all that experience and build an app that really focuses on safety over
Yeah.
freedom,
Yeah.
I think that's really empowering.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
and
think from a business standpoint, what really helped her,
mhm.
because if you think about it, right, like over 90% of dating apps fail. Let's get that out of the way,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Because building a dating, it's almost like building a restaurant, right? Like, it's very difficult. It's a very
yeah,
crowded market. There's so
mhm.
many entrenched
Very
monopolies that already
saturated,
exist.
very
Exactly.
saturated.
So I think from a business standpoint, the fact that she focused on a certain niche,
Mhm.
helped her a lot. Because women is such a large group, population group,
Yeah.
and one that is underserved. And
Mhm.
so by focusing on that, she really found a good segment,
Yeah.
for her business, I think.
Very, yeah, very good segment. And I think she's I think that also leads to like other, there are dating apps out there that's also like
Yeah.
very segmented focus, right? Like I think
Yeah.
you mentioned before, it what's it called? Dill Mill, right?
Yeah.
Dill Mill.
So like there's
That's
Dill Mill for like the Indian, like the South Asian community.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
even like
yeah,
religious ones, right? Like eHarmony is like for Christians. There's Minder for Muslims.
yeah. Okay.
And there's even like there's Grinder for the LGBTQ community. So like maybe I don't know how far back these kind of apps date, but
Yeah.
maybe she's the one who kind of started the whole like dating apps for a particular segment, whether it be a
Yeah.
demographic
I
or a religion
yeah.
or a, sexual orientation.
I think like we discussed before, I think she doesn't get enough credit Whitney Wolfe Herd. You know, she revolutionized online dating,
Mm-hmm.
right? She she's like, she empowered people to, make choices on dating
Yeah.
apps.
Yeah.
um even beyond that, like, she's just not getting, yeah, she's just not getting credit. If I'm not wrong, the swiping thing was also her idea. And if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
mistaken, it could actually be her idea. And also, like, when you look at her, like, I think online dating now, it's really more about branding. And she really
Yeah.
took that from her time
Yeah.
at SMU, and she
Yeah.
really, like, manifested it into her passion to
Yeah.
help people
Yeah.
and better society
Yeah.
right
Because
now.
it's arguably at this point in time, the branding is more important than the product itself.
She
Because it's
never
really
even
hard to
write a single
differentiate.
she never even write a single line of code, right?
I know, which is just crazy to me.
Right?
It just shows you don't need to be a developer to be a founder, right? You just need to have a good idea.
Yeah, no, she's a marketing guru.
Yeah,
So
yeah. She's founder, which is pretty insane. Execution is everything, and I mean her importance on branding, I think, took her really far.
yeah,
Because like a lot of people, at least me especially, like, right, I would really focus on how is our product better, right? Versus she was like the product is a product. Let's focus on building a brand that's better than everything
yeah,
else.
yeah.
So that's
So
that's
yeah,
kind of
it's
what
a
it
it's
is.
a it's a brand, it's a household brand. People talk about it. It stands alongside Tinder.
It's
Um,
number two. It's
yeah.
number two on the dating charts
I
behind
was just
Tinder.
I was just gonna say, I think the headquarters, or they call it the Hive, is in Texas.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh wait, you
it's in
were in Texas.
Austin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. Okay.
Whitney,
Yeah.
Whitney, come invite us, please. I'd be happy to come tour it.
Yeah. So I guess, like, this concludes the story of Bumble, the story of Whitney Wolfe Herd. Uh, we hope you enjoy it. I had a blast. I had a blast, like, telling the story.
Yeah, researching this was fun.
Yeah, it was good. So till next time, and we apologize for the wait, for the hiatus.
I know, I know. All my cousins that are listening to this,
Yeah.
feast your ears.
Awesome. All
All
right.
right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next
Thank
time.
you. See you next time.